Alright, that was just a nice quick view of what a white Jeep with a trailer looks like. Pretty damn good if you ask me. Obviously the seat is off of it. I do that in the fall so nothing eats it. And there was actually a rat's nest up under where the track is when I took the other tarp off of it. So, good thing I didn't have the seat there. First things first, I'm just going to pull out all the mothballs, because I usually mothball it come fall time, so that, you know, nothing really has an interest in getting under it. So, I got a bunch up under the hood. There's some up where your feet go. Let's see. So usually I have mothballs here, same thing on the other side. I usually put some down there, I usually put some up over here, over there, and the same thing on the other side. Now of course mothballs aren't permanent, they actually slowly dissolve and go away. Like you can see a couple remnants of some mothballs down here, but most of the other ones are actually all gone by this point. And unfortunately, there was a chipmunk, mouse, or something that got up on here. Because these sucks, I usually use the stuff in the carburetors and then pack it in there with mothballs as well, so nothing has an interest in getting in there. Because I do remove the airbox, because it has foam on it. But something did get up on here and decided to use these, part of this sock anyways, or actually most of this sock, for a nest. Probably the same nest that was under there. So, I have to pull this out of the way, make sure they didn't stuff nothing down my carburetors. It doesn't look like there's anything down there, but there's a little bit of dirt right here. But I'm just going to take a look, pull out any other sock remnants out of here. It's probably a little bit difficult to tell, but this is, if you're wondering, underneath the engine sort of, and something did make a nest under there. I see some sock, and I see some other shit from somewhere. So I'm going to have to clean all that out. And I guess what I should have did in hindsight is probably check on everything halfway through the summer and probably replace some of the mothballs that had already dissolved away, which I didn't do this year. I don't know, I don't remember if I did it the year before, but it probably would have been a good idea to do, being that I have outdoor storage. I also forgot to mention that I'm going to be taking the carbs off. I usually do that once before I get it going in the fall. I don't, just to clean it, I don't do a super clean. I just take the bowls off, take the main jet out, make sure that nothing's blocked up in there. And then there's also a little filter that goes into the main feed that I make sure is nice and cleared out. There's nothing blocking it. But, so we'll get going on that. Removing the carbs is pretty simple. It just takes pliers and Phillips head screwdriver. The pliers are just to remove the main fuel inlet. And then the screwdriver is to undo the boots. One thing to definitely check is to make sure that your boots are in good shape. You do not want to have boots that have cracks in them, because that will cause your engine to lean out, which is not something you want to have happen. This is the screen that I was talking about that goes into the main fuel inlet. Sometimes there's some crud that gets in there, obviously, because it's coming out of the fuel tank. Now my sled has primer, so I have to remove the primer tubes. You guys out there who have chokes don't have to worry about that, but I have the primer. They look to be in good shape. What I'm going to do is remove the caps on here, which will remove them all the way, and then I'll take it into the garage. So, I'm not going to go through a demonstration, I'm just going to show you a couple things that I always check no matter what. This here is a screen, or a filter rather, that gets put into the main fuel inlet right here. Now I did already show you that, but just to give you an idea, it is full of junk. Now it's kind of hard to tell, but this is a little pile of dirt and crud and stuff that had gotten stuck in that filter, and there's still more in there that I got to clean out, but that's just an idea of what can get stuck in there. And good thing that this is here, because otherwise this would end up in my engine. So, and another thing that I always check is to make sure that my floats don't ever get any holes in them and won't float anymore like they're supposed to. So you fill this up with gas. These are supposed to float to the surface to push on this little flapper, which shuts off the fuel inlet so it doesn't, flood the carburetor. Because if this, if those floats never floated, they would never push up on this flapper, which would never shut off the fuel inlet jet, and you would end up flooding the snowmobile full of fluid, because there would just be, more and more fluid just getting pumped into there. So usually never anything super blocked up in the carburetor, to be honest with you. It's always really clean every time I've taken it apart. So I usually never end up going much further than this. I just blow some fluids through the ports and stuff like that. But I always pull out this filter, and I always make sure that the floats still float. So I got my carburetors back in there. They're all hooked up. I got throttles hooked up, got my primer hooked up, got the main fuel line hooked up. I went and checked my spark plugs. They were both sufficiently shitty, so I threw my spares in there. So I'll have to get some new ones to use as my spares. We've got good of oil, or good of coolant. So I think what I'm going to do is look over everything once more, throw some fuel in the fuel tank, see if we can get her to fire up. So what I've done is, even though I do have a primer, the primer gets its fuel source from the main fuel line, so I still have to at least prime that. So usually what I do is I'll just put some pressure into the tank, namely by blowing on it, and I will then, once there's fuel in the main fuel line, will use the primer to get it all the way up with the carburetors. So that's all I've done so far. So I have one shot of fuel on the carburetors. Next up, we're gonna see how well it starts. It'll still probably cut out at least once or twice until fuel gets all the way up in the carburetors and fills the bowls, but we'll see what happens. So there you have it. After that, I just took the main drive belt and reinstalled it, and then put the cover back over the main drive belt that protects it. Then I just reinstalled my air filter box, which is held in with a rubber tie down, I guess you'd call it, and then re-oiled the first air part of the air filter. So usually vacuum it out, blow it all out and whatnot, and re-oil it. But at this point, the sled is basically ready to go. The only other thing that I would do right before, it actually snows was put the seat back on in preparation for, an actual snowmobile season. But that's it. Check us out on Facebook. Come back next time.